Hello everyone, it's Friday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. K-pop remains popular around the world. Evidence is seen with K-pop album sales in the first half of this year hitting a new high. Japan is the biggest overseas market, followed by the US and China. Among those topping music charts is Jungkook from BTS with his latest solo debut track, 7. And others include NCT DREAM and ZEROBASEONE. Now, what is behind their success and how is K-pop's popularity contributing to a global interest in Korean language and culture? To talk about this and the latest news from the K-pop scene, we invite Bernie Cho, president of DFSB Kollective. Bernie, welcome.
Good to be back in person, actually, this time.
All right. And we also have Jeong, assistant professor of Korean culture at Arizona State University. Professor Jeong, thank you for your time.
Hi.
Hello. Now, first question to our Bernie. Now, right after its release on July 14th, Jungkook's official solo debut single, 7, is proving to be a big hit, shooting up to the top of the many music charts, right? What more are we expecting from it right now?
Oh, the fact you even mentioned big hit, that was just low-hanging fruit. But yeah, this has been a massive hit. You know, as much as people worried about when BTS went on hiatus, it turns out that with each and every member going with solo projects and solo pursuits, it almost feels like a divide and conquer because as a band, they were breaking records. Now, each of the BTS members seem to be beating each other in their solo pursuits. Every time an individual member releases an album, an EP, a single, a video, or even a viral video for that matter, they're topping each other. And so right now we can honestly say that BTS is not only and had been the biggest band in the world, but each of these solo efforts are now breaking K-pop solo records, solo artist records. And so it's really hard to keep up with what 7 is going to do because every few hours, every few days, there's always a new development. You know, he's literally breaking the internet. He had a fan meeting and a listening party and the servers went down. So he shifted over to another social media platform. And, you know, the great thing about the BTS members is that they're so interactive with their fans. I mean, they don't really need a press release or press conference. You just have to tune in to their Weverse chats with their fans. And from what little I can gather so far is that, number one, he is obviously working towards an album that people are just waiting for that to finish. I did not know this, but he actually has a Starbucks drink that people are now just bending over backwards to get. I didn't know this. I go to Starbucks every day, but I got to try it. And so, but you know, right now his video is doing extremely well. The remixes, you know, full disclosure, I actually like the explicit version of 7.
Me too.
That came to me as a surprise. But yeah, it's just, I mean, he basically has locked down, I think, the song of the summer. And so, you know, we'll see how it goes. But it's so easy. I think I can sing this at a noraebang or karaoke. So thank you, Jungkook.
All right. I mean, it's really good to hear how each and every member of BTS is doing really great right now. But Bernie, the BTS member is not the only one that is making us excited here. NCT DREAM made their comeback with their full-length album, ISTJ, and sold over 1 million copies on the very first day of the sales alone. And new group, ZEROBASEONE and Stray Kids as well have seen millions of sales. What's behind such successes of these K-pop acts?
As much as I would like to say it's the music, I'm going to go out there and say it's not. It's the fans voting. It seems like, you know, the fans of these individual bands are not only looking at and focusing on their favorite boy band or girl band, but I think they're looking to the left and to the right to see how other bands that are in that sort of same league or same tier have done. And so it's really become kind of a competitive arms race that if band A sold this much, band B needs to sell a little more. And so it's really escalated so that not just one, but more and more bands are literally breaking records every month. And so, and it's not just within Korea or across Asia, it's now beyond Asia. And so, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But right now in the US, K-pop albums are the best-selling CDs right now in America. They dominate the top 10 for the first half of this year. I was a little bit crushed. There was a slight tear in my eye when I saw that many K-pop bands are now outselling one of my favorite bands, Metallica. I thought I'd never see that day, but here we are.
So I guess fandom is one of the many reasons why the K-pop bands are successing, right?
Oh yeah, so I mean, to me right now, when I see all these different bands competing and breaking each other's records, it almost feels like I'm watching a musical version of the English Premier League, and each band is vying to get into the Champions League. And so far, it just seems like the competition's been incredibly healthy, and more people are now becoming aware of all, not just the big bands, the great bands, but more importantly, the new bands as well.
All right, I see. Now, Professor Jeong, staying on the K-pop popularity front, K-pop album exports for the first half of this year reached a record high according to the Korea Customs Service. And an interesting aspect is that Japan was the largest K-pop importer, followed by the US and then China. Now, what do these figures suggest?
Well, Japan has always been the biggest market for K-pop exports. And I think what's really interesting here is that the US surpassed China and became the second biggest market. It shows that the enthusiasm and craze for K-pop in the US continues to be strong. And K-pop is becoming more mainstream in the US than before. And we could also think about some of the reasons why the Chinese market fell into the third biggest market. And one of the reasons could be the ban on K-pop idols on Chinese TV, which started in 2017 when Korea installed the THAAD missile defense system, and China saw that as a security threat. Another factor could be the rising anti-Chinese sentiment in South Korea, which could have affected Chinese fan support. Anyway, this kind of development is really interesting because it shows how the topography of K-pop is always changing and shifting to show the social-cultural conditions.
Right, I see. Now, Bernie, so thanks to this growing popularity of K-pop, fans from around the world are getting more interested in Korean language as well. And according to the American music sales data provider Illuminati, Korean language content had the third largest streaming share in the U.S. So what's behind this, successful reasons?
Yeah, the company's actually called Luminate, but it does almost feel like a little bit of an Illuminati in the sense that people were really stunned and taken by surprise by how big K-pop is. They kind of sensed it, they kind of felt it, they kind of heard it, but Luminate actually laid out the numbers. And I mean, people are really, I just got back from Los Angeles. A lot of industry people are utterly stunned. I mean, these numbers are literally making them numb because they knew K-pop was big. They didn't realize it was this big. Some of the takeaways that I saw when I read the data analytics, and again, I was surprised, was that globally, Korean language songs, Luminate didn't do a top 10, top 100, top 200 survey. They did a survey of the top 10,000 streaming songs, both audio and video. And when they did this analysis, Korean language songs were the fourth most popular stream songs in the world. English was number one for good reasons. Spanish was number two for obvious reasons. Hindi was number three for very simple, obvious reasons. Korean was number four, and then Portuguese was number five. So all those different languages represent, continents, regions, most of the globe, and then there's Korean. And then when they did a breakout of certain markets around the world, they did a sample of, I believe, about 6 to 10 different markets. What was surprising to me was in Indonesia, one of the biggest and fastest growing markets in the world, Korean language was number 3. In South America, in markets like Colombia, Korean language was number 3. And right now in the United States, this took a lot of people by surprise. Among the top 10,000 songs streaming in the US, English, obviously number 1, Spanish, obviously number 2, Korean was the third most popular language of listeners in the US. And so this is something that a lot of people are just sort of digesting, this data, but it speaks tremendous volumes of the progress that K-pop has come so far.
I see. Now, Professor Jeong, how can interest in other countries' languages lead to interest in its culture? I mean, and is K-pop really contributing to making global fans become more interested in Koreans, not only the language, but also its unique culture and history?
Oh, definitely. Global fans are learning Korean language, and they're studying Korean culture and history to engage more with their favorite idols and also with other fans. In fact, universities in North America has already witnessed a rise in student enrollment in Korean language and also content classes. According to Modern Language Association, there has been a huge rise in student enrollment in Korean language courses. Actually, from 2009 to 2016, there's been a 78% percent increase. And this is really remarkable because just, language enrollment in total hasn't really risen recently. And also, I've been seeing more and more universities advertise for professors and teachers who can teach Korean culture and history and also language. And on social media, I see more and more fans posting about how they're learning the language through smartphone apps. They're reading on Korean culture and history to educate themselves. And I myself will also be teaching a language course in fall and a K-pop course in spring. So I'm really excited to meet students who are interested in learning more about K-pop, Korean language, and culture.
You must be. Now, Professor Jeong, one more question. So that being said, what kind of support from the Korean government or other entities do you believe should be in place so that global fans can continue to be interested in Korean culture and language?
Well, I think the Korean government should continue to support institutions that help promote language, culture, and history. For example, the Korea Foundation or the Academy of Korean Studies has been really instrumental in supporting research in Korean studies, courses, and also special events in universities. And also Korean cultural centers, which are placed in several cities globally, have been promoting Korean culture and language through special events and courses. And I believe that it's really important for the government to continue supporting these kind of institutions so that global fans can access these kind of events and courses in their local area.
Right, I see your point. Now, Bernie, let's come back to the K-pop industry. Now, JYP Entertainment and Republic Records K-pop competition series A2K premiered recently. And for those who might not know this, the show is about creating the first ever American girl group, right, through the K-pop training system. Now, first of all, what's your reaction to the shows that have been released up until now? And what are the chances this group will grab the attention of the global music market?
I think it's a great show because, again, even though it's a brand new thing in the West, in the US, that this idea of exporting the secret sauce of K-pop to America, and there's no better ambassador to do it than JYP. In many ways, he's very much the product of sort of growing up in the US. And, one of the first things he did right out of his gates on the first episode was pay tribute to the influence that African-American black music had on him growing up and how it really resonated and really sort of crafted the JYP sound. And so right off the bat, Americans were like, wow, this guy's actually acknowledging the impact and influence that black music, African-American music had on K-pop. And so the thing with me is that, I've been very fortunate to work many years in the industry where, when I was at MTV, and I saw firsthand, how JYP, not only as himself as an artist, but as a producer and more importantly as a mentor, has really sort of honed the craft of not only discovering but developing artists. And so for those who watch all the various audition shows, he's probably one of the few people that has been able to discover a band and not only make them stars but superstars. And so for him, this idea of exporting the business model of the audition shows, this is not his first try. He has proven success in China. He did a joint venture collaboration with Tencent Music and created a huge boy band in China, but using the K-pop training system. He then teamed up with Sony Music in Japan in 2019, 2021, and they created a thing called the NCT Project, where they also produced a hit J-pop band, girl band, but using the K-pop training system. And then last but not least, one of the biggest bands right now touring is Twice. And a lot of people sometimes forget that Twice was actually discovered through an audition show that JYP had done in Korea. So for him, this is really an extension of a very successful track record he has had, not only as an artist but producer, but basically the master chef on creating this amazing dish of K-pop training. And so the idea that he's applying it, and again, Republic Records is one of the biggest music labels in not just the US, but in the world. So the fact that they're leaning into him for his expertise and experience to discover the next big girl band in the US, I think is going to be a fascinating watch. And again, the smart thing is sticking to the basics. Instead of going on network TV or cable TV, straight to YouTube, straight to social media. And already it's had a huge impact. A lot of the videos have gone viral. And so I'm fascinated, I'm curious, and I'm tuning in. I want to see who the next big girl band will be coming out of the US, but with the JYP stamp.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. Bernie, I'd like to ask you this, actually. So it seems like this K-pop training system has become one of a kind. What's your view on this? I mean, is it really special?
Yeah, I think in the sense that the K-pop training system, for a lot of critics, they want to sort of knock it as being sort of a factory model. But the reality is that that sort of model worked in the U.S. When we talk about the Motown sound. Berry Gordy, he used to be a car factory employee, car factory owner. So he saw the efficiencies of building stars and creating music in that manner. Now, I think that the K-pop system has very much evolved, taking a lot of the best practices from Japan and from the US and from elsewhere, and have really sort of put a creative centrifuge on best practices and have created something very unique. And I think the success speaks for itself. The fact that not just one, but multiple management companies have their own distinct style of discovering, just developing and training these acts. This is something that's become highly desirable, not just for Korean trainees and aspiring artists, but you see more and more new artists and trainees coming in from all over the world wanting this. And so this idea that now instead of having kids from Southeast Asia or from Greater China or from the US coming to Korea, now you have these Korean basically gurus going outside of Korea to sort of plant these different systems in place. And so it's interesting to see that the K-pop business model has now moved from the artist and the music now to the system and to the business models.
I see. Professor Jeong, I'd like to also ask your opinion on this. What do you think about this K-pop training system?
Well, like Bernie said, the idea of the idol was first inspired from J-pop and the media industry in Japan in the early 90s. But we have witnessed K-pop companies solidify and systemize this idol making. And now K-pop training has become one of its own kind. We've seen SM Entertainment create the first kinds of, idol groups such as H.O.T. and SCS through exclusive auditions and also in-house training. And soon after, other companies like DSP, YG, JYP, they all adopt this system. And then in the 2010s, we also see the rise of audition TV programs, which has now become another hurdle for trainees to overcome to make their debut. And I think these kind of programs also benefited from technological developments because the program viewers can also vote and express their support for a specific trainee to become an idol. And I think, today K-pop system has really created its own kind of training, and it's really very unique.
Right, I see. Professor Jeong, we have been talking about big agencies like YG Entertainment, JYP, but regardless of the agency's, sheer brand or size, K-pop groups backed by independent labels could also land on big charts as well. And one of that example is actually Girlgroup, Pi프티피프티. Now, before we delve deeper into the legal battle the group is now involved in, what do you believe made their success possible?
Well, there are multiple factors you need to create a hit song. For example, you would need a really good song that appeals to listeners everywhere. You would need a high-quality music video, slick choreography that has some kind of very attractive or dynamic performance that could be used for social media promotions. And actually, Pi프티피프티's label recognized the social media TikTok as very useful for promoting the group's song, and so they would showcase the group's charm, and they would also promote TikTok challenges, which many say was the main factor for the group's sudden popularity. But like I said, it's not just about TikTok, not just about social media. There are multiple factors that you need to create a hit song.
Right. Now, Bernie, I have already said, but Pi프티피프티's agency, former production company, and the girl group itself, they are all currently embroiled in this legal battle. Now, first of all, what is this controversy about?
I don't think we have enough time to sort of go through all the
Very
details
briefly.
and nuances, but essentially, you have three parties that you equally were responsible for the hit behind Pi프티피프티 and, more importantly, the song Cupid. And unfortunately, all three companies sort of aired dirty laundry about their grievances, and the timing could not have been worse. As they're peaking, as they're creating new milestones, and again, what made their success a little bit more special was they basically were the underdog. They were the small, they were the indie, they were the scrappy act that no one saw coming. And right when they were on the brink of just going even bigger and even wider, they got in this very public, ugly fight, pointing fingers, and I would maybe go so far as to say some middle fingers at each other. And the timing could not be worse. You know, instead of the hits, now you're starting to see the misses, the missed opportunities, because, you know, they lost a great opportunity to promote the new Barbie movie, because they have a song in there. They have basically canceled from big festivals that are coming up in the next few weeks and few months, and it's widely rumored they lost a lot of endorsement deals. And so it's really tragic to see this, but I hope the industry takes a lesson in terms of basically what not to do, because it became very apparent through this airing out of grievances that there were a lot of things that could have, should have been done better. But it's unfortunate, and I think that of all the people who are basically suffering from this, unfortunately it's the artists who are basically bearing the brunt of this ugly battle.
Right. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how this legal battle develops. But Bernie, how do you hope this feud will, you know, eventually be resolved?
Well, I don't know if it's going to resolve amicably. I think we've passed that point. What I do hope, and I think, is I hope that the industry learns a few lessons from this episode, because I think that it should not have come this far, but a lot of very important issues were raised, and I think, you know, unfortunately in Korea, when things move fast, you always like nod your head, we'll get around to it, we'll get around to it. I think if anything, it's become very apparent, more professionalism, more paperwork, more clear guidelines, and more clear guardrails on what to do and not to do. Because as they became successful, everybody wanted to claim not only their success, they wanted to claim the band. And that's where I think a lot of the problems arose.
Right, I see. Now, I'd like to ask many more questions to our experts, but unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Bernie, for your insights. And thank you, Professor Jeong, for your time and your insights. We really appreciate it. All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be next Monday with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the weekend, and goodbye.